Good afternoon, everyone. It's Rabbi Akiva Males, and I hope that you're well. Today is Friday. It's October 9th. It's Hoshana Rabbah, and we're getting ready for Shemini Atzeres and Simchas Torah. And many of us have a lot of thoughts going through our minds. This is going to be a very different Simchas Torah than any that we've celebrated until now. And I wanted to share some ideas that I had that are going through my thought process today. If you look in the Chaye Adam, it's in Simon, it's Kuf Nun Gimel, 153. Here's how he describes Simchas Torah. And you'll find something very similar in the Ramah, but I'm reading this for a reason, because the Chaye Adam was a student and a friend of the Vilna Gaon, and we're going to see what he writes about him. He says, Valayla, on this night that we call Simchas Torah, let me actually begin a sentence earlier. Yom Achron Shel Chag, the final day of Sukkot, Dahainu b'Yom Tishi, which would really be the ninth day, Shuladidan, for us in Galus, us living outside of Israel, is the ninth day. Gamkein Shemini Atzeres is both Shemini Atzeres and it'll be Simchas Torah as well. According to Simchas Torah, we call that Simchas Torah. Why? Lefisha Gomer Ba'at Torah. That's the day on which we make a siyam on finishing reading the Torah. V'Valayla, the night going into Simchas Torah, so this year that'll be Matzah Shabbos. Mekadshin v'yomrem es yom hashmini u'mevarchen shechiyanu. Fine, that's what we do. We say yom hashmini and we say shechiyanu again. V'nogim medinos elu. What's our custom outside of Israel? He's saying in Ashkenaz, lahotzi kol sifrei Torah shebeheichal, to take out all the Torahs that are found in the Aron. Makifan es habima, and we circle the bima and we sing v'amrim shiros, and we sing all sorts of praises to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and sing zmiros. The Agra, and he writes about his teacher, his Rabbi, and his friend, the Gra. He says, V'Agra haya makiv zayin pamim. He also, the Gra was someone who throughout the year really had very little to do with the community. He had a small minyan where he davened, he had a small shul, and he learned all day long. But he's saying, what did he do? He took time out from his schedule, which was completely filled with Torah study, and he also would be makiv zayin pamim. He would encircle the bima 7 times. And he would say all of the same zmiros as everyone else, what's nidfas b'sidurim, everything that's printed in the sidurim. And then he says, Vayamakif u'merakid l'fnei sefer Torah. He would go around, he would circle the bima, and he would dance before the Torah, b'chol kocho, with every ounce of strength that he had. And that's what he would do. And that was the minhag that we're all so used to, is to really giving it our all on Simchas Torah. And everyone would look forward to a chance of dancing together with the Torah and with their friends and with the community, with the shul. This is going to be such a different Simchas Torah this year. But we're going to make the most of it. We understand that we have to be cautious because of the pandemic that we find ourselves in the middle of, but we're going to make the most of it. I want to share with you a practical eitzah, a really good idea. How can we make the most of this? I want to read to you something, an email I received, suggestions from Rabbi Yosef Tzvi Rimon. Rav Rimon is a very prominent rabbi in Israel. He's a posek. He guides many institutions, and people throughout the country seek his halachic guidance. I want to read to you something which he wrote, which is absolutely beautiful, where he was suggesting ideas what to do with this year's Simchas Torah. He says, Niten levakesh mikol echad. He says, I think it makes a lot of sense to request from everyone. Sheyavi sefer limud shebo hu asu ke'es. Everyone should come to shul on Simchas Torah, bring with themselves, bring a sefer, bring some sefer. It could be an English sefer, it could be a Hebrew sefer, it could be a Gemara, it could be something that we're in the middle of learning, something of Torah study. It could be an English book, whatever it is that has some Torah quality to it that we're in the middle of learning. Lamashal, he says, for example, Maseches Eruvin, Lalomdei Daf Yomi. For those who are in the middle of Daf Yomi, they're in the middle of Maseches Eruvin now. They should bring their Eruvin. The Daf learners should bring their Eruvin with them. And everyone should stand in their place, stay in their seat, and instead of being able to hold the Sefer Torah this year, hold the Sefer. Whatever Sefer it is that we're in the middle of learning, whatever that is, dance with that in our spots, in the place of a Sefer Torah. And then listen to this. He says, Derech zu lamadati. Where did I get this idea from? Miminhag Yeshivas Chachmei Lublin. This was the minhag in Yeshivas Chachmei Lublin that was founded by Rav Meir Shapiro in Lublin, Poland, and he was the initiator of the Daf Yomi program. We always speak about him every year, well, every 7 years when the Daf Yomi makes its big siyum, Rav Meir Shapiro's name always comes up. This was the minhag, he says in Yeshivas Chachmei Lublin, his great yeshiva. that was operating in Poland. Sham Hinig Rav Meir Shapiro, the minhag that he had in that yeshiva was sheyasu akafos lo rak im Torah. They would do the akafos. They would joyously take part in the akafos and Simchas Torah, but not just with Sifrei Torah. Elagami ma gemaras. He would tell all the boys in the yeshiva, bring your gemaras, and everyone who's working day and night to learn, bring your Gemara, dance with your Gemara. That is your partner. Not everyone can hold the Sefer Torah, but everyone has a chelik in Torah. Everyone has a portion of Torah. Bring it and dance with it. And I think this would be a beautiful idea. This is what Reverend Ramon was suggesting for this year. How can we compensate? How can we find some way to compensate for what we're missing, the Simchas Torah? It's obviously not going to replace, it's not going to be able to make it exactly like the Simchas Torah that we're used to, but this is a way to make it meaningful in this year. There will be one person who's going to be, for each one of the couples, going around the Torah in our shul. But we're going to be in our seats for several minutes, and we'll have a chance to sing. But what can make that singing more meaningful is let's hold something. Let's hold a sefer. Let's hold a volume of something that we're learning, of Torah study. Again, it could be Hebrew, it could be English, it could be both, whatever it is that we're in the middle of. Each of us, hopefully, each of us is in the middle of engaged in some form of Torah learning. Whatever book, whatever sefer it is that we're using, bring it to shul. Both Matzei Shabbos for Simchas Torah and also Sunday morning for Simchas Torah. And let's hold that. Let's hold it dearly. Let's hold it to our hearts. And let's say to HaKadosh Baruch Hu as we do that, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we love you. We love your Torah. We're sorry that we can't dance this year, each of us clasping the Torah, having our chance to do Akiva, but we're doing the next best thing. We're demonstrating our love for the Torah by holding a sefer close to our hearts and showing just how much we want that to be part of us. I want to share one more item with you as well. Over Yom Tov, I've been reading, Rabbi Beryl Wine recently put out another book. It was called In My Opinion. It's a collection of his essays from over the years, some of them more recent than others. And I saw, I think it was on just the other day on Yom Tov, the first days of Yom Tov, one of his essays really caught my eye. It was called My Books. That was the name of his essay. And he was lamenting the fact that when he made Aliyah several years ago and he moved from Monsey to Israel, he had a huge library back in Monsey. He obviously could not bring that all to Israel with him. His apartment in Israel is much smaller than his house was in Monsey. And he had to really think long and hard which farm did he want to bring with him. And he's writing about how it's a beautiful essay where he's writing about how he longs for some of those farms. He knew exactly where they were on a shelf. Every now and then in the course of his learning and his writing and his reading, he wants to refer to a sefer and he wants to go to a shop. He knows exactly where to look, but it's not there anymore. He doesn't have it anymore. It's a beautiful essay. And he's writing about how this love affair that Klal Yisrael has always had with its Sfarim. And listen to this, one of his closing paragraphs here. He says, Jews have always had a reverence for books. There's an anecdote regarding the Jewish professor, Harry Wolfson, who was one of the first Jews to acquire tenure at Harvard University. This was in the beginning of the 20th century, when academic anti-Semitism in the United States was open and palpable. Wolfson was once confronted by one of his colleagues who said to him, "Why do you Jews think you are so special?" Wolfson is reported to have coolly answered, "As far as I know, we're the only people in the entire world who pick up a dropped book from the floor and kiss it." How true is that? What do we do when we see our siddur fall in shul? We see a chumash fall, any sefer fall. We pick it up and we kiss it. We're showing our reverence. We're showing HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We love your Torah. We feel so privileged that you shared your Torah with us. We have volumes. Each and every one of us have volumes of the Torah in one form or another in our home. Let's show our love for this Simchas Torah. If we can't do it in its normal fashion, let's do it in this other way. Let's follow the example of Rav Meir Shapiro, as Rav Ramon is suggesting to all of those who are turning to him for guidance in Israel. Let's follow that minhag, of that beautiful minhag of Yeshivas Chachmei Lublin. And let's bring a sefer, something that we're engaged in Torah study. Let's bring it with us. And when we sing this Simchas Torah, and when we dance holding our sefer close to our heart, we'll have a chance to make this so meaningful. That might compensate for the fact that we're not holding on to one another, that sense of camaraderie that we long for and that we so enjoy on Simchas Torah will be a little bit lacking this year, but we can compensate it for it in this fashion. Leila and I wish each and every one of you a good Yom Tov. It should be uplifting. We should all find ways to make the best of the situation we find ourselves in. I think we can make the very best of it. HaKadosh Baruch Hu should answer all of our tefillos, our heartfelt prayers. He should bring an end to this pandemic as soon as possible and bring the refuah, bring the true healing to the world that only He can. Have a good Yom Tov, everyone.